We live in a world of instant everything. You see something you want, you tap your screen, and boom, it shows up at your door. It feels seamless. But behind that super convenient click, there's this hidden, massive, physical world that makes it all happen. So today, let's pull back that curtain and really look at what's powering our digital lives. Seriously, what really happens? It's a question we don't often think about, probably because that click feels so, well, weightless, almost like magic. But it's not magic. That one little tap sets off this huge, complex chain reaction in the real world, a process that eats up a ton of actual resources. We're going to follow that chain and uncover the true environmental price tag of that click. Okay, so to get this, we have to start thinking physically. E-commerce isn't just some idea floating around in cyberspace. Nope, it's a gigantic, physical engine. And every single time you buy something, every single click, that's another gear grinding, another piston firing in that engine. We all love to talk about the cloud, don't we? It sounds so light and fluffy, but here's the reality check. The cloud has a physical address. It lives on the ground, inside millions of computer servers, all humming away in these enormous, power-guzzling buildings called data centers. Just think of these data centers as the brain and the heart of the entire internet. Every time you do a search, stream a movie, and yep, every single time you buy something online, it gets processed in one of these places. They are the incredibly powerful and very, very real engines of our digital world. And here's the really crucial part. These engines, they never, ever turn off. We're talking 24/7, 365 days a year. This nonstop operation creates an absolutely staggering demand for two of our most precious resources: a whole lot of energy to keep the servers running and a massive amount of water to keep them from, well, melting. And this gets us right to the core problem for the whole e-commerce industry. You see, keeping these data centers from overheating isn't just some tech issue. It is a huge environmental balancing act, and the stakes are incredibly high. This all boils down to a critical trade-off. To keep things cool, companies basically have two main choices. They can go with traditional air chillers, but those things consume a shocking amount of electricity. Or they can use water for cooling, which is way more energy efficient, but it puts this huge strain on local water supplies, which are sometimes already scarce. It's a constant environmental tug of war. Now, to really understand the impact of that choice, you need to know this term: baseline water stress. It's basically a score that measures how much water is being used in an area compared to how much water is actually available. So, if a company builds a massive data center in a place with high water stress, its cooling system isn't just some background noise. It is actively competing for every single drop of water with local farms and with the communities that need it to live. So, to get a handle on this, companies are now being told to report some very specific data. They have to measure not just the total water they withdraw, meaning take from a source, but also how much they consume, which means it evaporates and never goes back. But the real game-changer metric is this one. Companies now have to report what percentage of their water is being used in these high-risk, water-stressed regions. That's what tells the real story of their local impact. Of course, water is only half the equation. On the energy side of things, companies also have to report their total consumption. How much of that power is just coming from the regular grid, and this is a big one, what percentage is coming from renewable sources? You put these two things together, water and energy, and you get a really clear picture of a facility's true environmental footprint. For the longest time, a lot of these environmental costs were pretty much invisible, buried deep in some corporate report nobody ever reads. But that's finally starting to change, thanks to a big push for accountability and a whole new set of rules designed to bring all these numbers out into the daylight. And this is a key player, the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, or SASB for short. Their whole mission is to create a common language for companies to talk about sustainability. They create these super detailed, industry-specific standards so that when one company reports its environmental impact, it's using the exact same yardstick as all of its competitors. No more comparing apples to oranges. So why does this matter so much? Well, there's an old saying: you can't manage what you don't measure. By standardizing all this data, SASB makes those hidden costs totally visible. It lets investors see the real risks a company is facing, and it lets all of us, the public, actually hold them accountable. And these standards are seriously thorough. This isn't just asking for a few numbers.
They start by defining the entire industry. Then they identify the key risks, like water management. After that, they give the specific metrics you need to measure, the technical rules for how you measure, and even metrics to put it all into context. It's a complete 360-degree view of what's going on.
Now, we focused a lot on the energy and water used by data centers, and that's a huge piece of the puzzle. But it's really important to realize that these new standards for e-commerce actually go way beyond just that. The SASB framework actually requires companies to report on a bunch of other critical stuff too. We're talking about how they handle your data privacy, how they protect against data breaches, how they're doing with employee diversity, and even the environmental impact of their packaging and shipping. It's basically a comprehensive report card for what it really means to be a sustainable business in this digital age. So when you put all of these different pieces together, you really start to see why this whole push for transparency is such a game changer. It's not just about getting more numbers, it's about fundamentally changing the entire conversation. So let's just quickly recap the main points. First, every single online click has a real, physical, resource-hungry footprint. Second, data centers are constantly caught in this tough spot, having to trade off between using tons of energy or tons of water. Third, for the first time, new standards, like the ones from SASB, are making these hidden costs visible so we can actually compare them. And finally, all of this data empowers everyone, from big-shot investors to everyday people like us, to make smarter, more sustainable choices. And all of this leaves us with one last, really important question. Look, having information is powerful, but it isn't the same as taking action. For years, the real cost of our convenience was just an abstract idea. Now it's becoming a hard number on a report. The real question is, what are we all going to do with that knowledge?